Hello there, Sully here. Welcome to Transitions. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you for your continued support. But if you're not, be sure you hit that subscribe button right here. Alright. This one may not necessarily be about truck driving per se, because I've done a little bit of introspection lately, and I really think that there's a certain personality that will succeed in for trucking or in anything. I mean, what kind of a personality do you have to be? Okay, maybe what I need to say is, no matter what you do, you're going to find people out there who think badly of you, and they will judge you for what they see, or at least what they perceive. And a lot of times, how you deal with that? I mean, yeah, sometimes you have to take the opinion that I do, and don't let people offend you. Don't let people bother you. Keep in mind that there are 7 billion people living on this bright blue ball that we call Earth. And it has been assumed that an equal number of that people have already lived and gone on to the great beyond. And we can safely assume that, barring some natural disaster which will terminate our existence, before the species Homo sapiens evolves into some other species, maybe about 30 or 40 billion copies of that species will have lived. So out of those billions and billions and billions of people, you are the only you there is, ever was, or ever will be. Pretty profound thinking for some retired truck driver, huh? Well, maybe, but that doesn't make it untrue. This is the type of thing I would think about on those long runs to pass the time. But the truth is, you really need to be able to get by without supervision. You have to have the discipline to do things when they need to be done without having to be told to do them. And you have to be able to do this on a daily basis with consistency. And you have to be able to do things right if you want to be a successful professional driver. And that lack of self-discipline has cost more than a few drivers their careers. The big thing about it is you have to like yourself. You know, sometimes people will accuse me of being a bit narcissistic. And to a certain extent, they're right. I can be a little bit self-absorbing, but I do have a fierce streak of independence which was nurtured at an early age. I talked in the past about how my parents died while I was a teenager, while I was in high school. They died less than 2 years apart, and for a lot of people it's traumatic and they want to withdraw. I came to the realization that I was still alive and I had a life to live, and that whole life was ahead of me. So rather than wallow in self-pity, I never would go to people and say, hey, feel sorry for me. My parents are dead. Feel sorry for me. I'm an orphan. I didn't even tell people. I didn't want them to judge me based on that. And when they found out, they were pretty surprised. They say, boy, you got it together there, Sully. Well, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Some people will say I'm even a bit selfish. Well, guilty as charged and no excuses. But you know what? I read a lot when I was a youngster. I don't read as much as I should today, but I think there was a quote, I don't know if it was in Shakespeare or maybe it was from the Bible, but the quote was, "This above all to thine own self be true." You know, I'm pretty sure it was Shakespeare that said no man is an island. But, you know, there's also that poem by Robert Frost about two paths diverged in a golden wood, and I took the road less traveled. And that has made all the difference. The road less traveled. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch for a truck driver, since we go down the same well-traveled roads all day long. But it's the path in life I'm talking about here. And that's what Frost was talking about. Frost, by the way, did a pretty good job talking about death, too, when he said, I have places to go, promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. I'm going off on a tangent again. But, yeah, really think that I took the road less traveled. I didn't do what all my friends did. They all said, okay, what we have to do is we have to go out and get jobs, we have to find wives, we have to buy a home, we have to raise a family. I did none of that. And I think I explained why I never got married and had a family in a previous video. If not, you can refer to it. But I think I did a pretty fair job of it. But my sister Maggie, she did a fantastic job of it. Now, she is a bit of an introvert, and she embraces that facet of her personality. I sometimes think that I'm an omnivert, but I do revel in solitude. Going so far as to say that when I am by myself, I find myself in the best of company. And either I'm an introvert or I'm an omnivert who's comfortable in that introverted part of my personality. That'll help you to succeed. If you are comfortable, either in solitude or at least in being introverted, maybe to the point of a little self-absorption, maybe to the point of narcissism, whatever. But there are extroverts out there too who succeed at this business. And if you don't believe me, just turn on your CB radio. I mean, there are some real ratchet jaws out there. I usually found them sometimes entertaining, but when they got to be too much of a pain, when they got on my nerves, I just would turn the radio off. But you will run into all types of personalities out there. The guy or gal who can keep themselves, well deported, can keep to themselves, the quiet type, and I'm not talking about, he was just a loner. I'm talking about somebody who can deal with getting things done without attracting attention, just plugging through the day, doing the job as best as you can. Because it's the driver who gets people's attention, who gets noticed, that gets in trouble. The DOT is not going to pull the guy over who isn't tailgating. The DOT is not going to pull over the guy whose truck looks nice and it doesn't have things falling off. But if you have stuff falling off, if you're going down driving like a bat out of hell, you're going to catch somebody's attention. It's going to get you in trouble. I guess another point to ponder is what exactly a truck driver does. I mean, well, you deliver everything. That's what you do. Everything that everybody has was delivered by a truck driver. Think about that. A workforce of 3 million people. And the 300 million people in this country depend on them. Okay, if it wasn't for the truck drivers, you'd go to the grocery store. Where's the food? Oh, well, we don't like truck drivers anymore, so we're not using them. Well, how are you going to get the food? Where does the food come from? Do you ever think about that when you go to the grocery store? If you're not a truck driver and you go to the grocery store or you go to Walmart or Target, where does this stuff come from? Think about it. Do they make it in the back? Does Scotty beam it there? It has to come from somewhere. It's what they call the supply chain. The supply chain, you have the manufacturer, you have the warehouse, you have the distribution center, you have the store. It's all a big chain. And these chains are linked together. But what is the common denominator in all these places? From the manufacturer to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the distribution center, from the distribution center to the store. Okay? Stuff has to get from there to there to there to there. And how do they do it? Trucks. And how does the truck get from the warehouse to the distribution center to the store? It's driven there by a person called a truck driver. That is the most essential link in the chain. Okay, now, because there are so many diverse personalities in the workforce, 3 million people out there, and no two are exactly alike. And there'll be people out there who just don't like you. You just gotta let that not bother you. I mean, you'll run into people you don't like, who might be absolutely popular among everybody else. Who people, seek them out at a party, and there'll be other people that avoid them like the plague. It's just people's personality, and I guess, I think if you want to get respect, you got to first of all respect yourself. But there'll be people out there who still don't like you, and I guess that's why Baskin Robbins makes 31 flavors, right? There are people out there who will never show you respect, driver. They have prejudices based on very superficial observations, clouded by the opinions of others, and they live based on these preconceived notions. I mean, they think, oh, well, I saw a news report about this, about truck drivers, and they're all running illegal, and they're running illegally, and they're all running illegally. That's a generic statement. No. They all are on drugs because I saw a report where showed truck drivers taking drugs. You know, I was at a place one time where a guy said, well, you guys all bring lot lizards onto your truck. Dude, lot lizards went out of style before I ever climbed into the cab of a big truck. I mean, that's so 70s and 80s. And it is what it is, but you don't really see lot lizards out there a lot. There's still some out there, but they're a little bit more sophisticated. They use social media, and they just have a better going of it than hopping from truck to truck. There's just no money in it. But the idea of preconceived notions, there are people out there who are convinced that driving a truck is not a full-time job. And I'll give you a case in point. It was a day off, and like I used to do back in the day, on my day off, I would go out to a local establishment and throw back a few cold Yinglings. And in this particular day, there was 2 other truck drivers in there. My bro Tony, happy birthday, Tony. I say that every time I see him because he and I have the same birthday. And sadly, I didn't include him in my birthday video. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I heard he still pops in from time to time. And Kenny, who we affectionately called him Stone Liver, he was arrested one time for bringing a toxic substance onto a fishing boat. It turned out to be Old Milwaukee beer or some other cheap brand. That they accused him of that. They said the Coast Guard doesn't allow that toxic substance on the boats. Kenny liked to drink, but the trouble is he liked to drink too much. Fortunately, he was able to control it to the point where he only did it when he wasn't working. And I think he spent a couple trips to well, I won't get into that. But so anyway, Kenny, Tony, and I are sitting in the bar, and there was this fella. His name was Eric. Nice enough guy. He worked in advertising. Sad to say that Eric passed away about 10 years ago, and the circumstances are still kind of clouded as to how it went. I just say it wasn't foul play. But I won't get into that either. But Eric was a nice enough guy. And he just asked me flat out. He says, tell me about driving a truck. Is that more of a part-time job, or do you actually work a full 8 hours every day? That's exactly what he said. And that was exactly the response that he got from Tony. That's exactly the response that he got from Kenny. And that's exactly the response he got from me. Dead silence. For maybe 20 seconds. And then the three of us just burst out in laughter at the same time. And you know, he had no idea what he had said until I explained to him. I said, truck drivers work 14 hours a day. He didn't know. He had no clue. And he said, so you go into work and you get in your truck and you drive for 14 hours. And no, you're on the road. You stop, you park, you sleep where you are. He says, how do you do that? In the bunk. There's one time I stopped for I was up in Middletown, New York, picking up a Genpack load. And after I picked up my load, I had to stop and get a cup of coffee. I had just come off my 10-hour break. I got there, dropped my empty, took my 10-hour break, grabbed my paperwork, and I was stopping to grab some coffee. And I stopped at this little gas station. I guess it was early in the morning. And there was a fella in there, I guess he was maybe late teens, early 20s. And I don't know if he was old there or not, but he just said, yeah, you got a pretty big area in the back. I'm going to give you a good idea. I said, what? There was a guy in here one time? You know that back part of the truck? He put a bed in there. Maybe you should consider doing that. That way you can sleep. And I was looking at him like, he put a bed in there. I said, he didn't put the bed in there. He said, well, yeah, there's a bed in there. He took everything out of there and put a bed in. I said, no, he didn't. He says, oh, he had a bed in there. I said, oh, yeah, he had a bed in there. That's what it is. That's called the sleeper berth. That's the bunk. That comes from the factory like that. The guy says, well, I guess it's a good idea. But I thought you guys parked outside of motels and slept there. Some people, they just don't get it. They just don't understand. And I remember even when I first got into trucking, and my niece, who was maybe, let's see, I was 93, so she would have been about 12 or 13 years old at the time, and she said, well, where do you take a shower? I said, well, truck stops have showers. You fill up with fuel, you get a free shower. She says, isn't that a little disgusting? I says, no. I said, these are individual showers. They clean them after every use. You get a free towel, free washcloth. Everything is clean to hotel standards. And I said, and I told her how some truck stops have actually lost fleets because of the condition of the showers. So you have to come to an understanding that there are people out there who do not perceive what you do, and they don't understand what it takes. And they don't even understand the concept of everything they have. They don't comprehend the long hours, the lousy pay, the working conditions, weather that changes frequently, tedious time spent in truck stops. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. People assume that driving a truck is just like any other 9-to-5 job. At the end of the day, a clock tells us when it's time to go home, and that's just not so. And when we can't be that way, it frustrates them. I think it was Bob Dylan who said, everybody wants me to be just like them, but I'm trying my best to be just what I am. They dance while I slave, and I get bored. Well, maybe this was a fool's errand to try to convince the public at large what it is that we do out there. And most either won't believe it, or just allow their preconceived notions to get the best of them. I think it was Johannes von Goethe who said, against ignorance, even the gods contend in vain. To which Nietzsche replied, against boredom, even the gods contend in vain. I'll tell you, I don't have a whole lot of use for Nietzsche. For transitions, this is Sully, the retired tanker yanker. Safe and happy travels.